Welcome to Outside the Box for Week 17. This is a Stochastic and Fantasy Points collaboration. We're going to take a look at the tools for both Stochastic and Fantasy Points to identify the best plays on DraftKings this week. I'm Neil Orfield. I'm your host. You can find me on Twitter at PlayerQDFS. I am here with Scott Barrett from Fantasy Points. You can find him on Twitter at Scott Barrett DFB. Really looking forward to diving into this slate. This should be a fun one. Week 17, we've got a lot of high totals on the slate, so it'll be fun to dive into the slate. But Scott has been sick all week. He's had COVID this week, was not feeling well, didn't do a lot of the content he usually does. So if you're dying for some Scott Barrett content, this is one of the few places you're going to be able to find it this week. And of course, Scott just took down a big tournament 2 weeks ago, so you probably want to listen to what Scott has to say. Scott, how are you feeling today?
I was feeling like way better all the way back, but I just picked up a headache that's like so painful it's making me nauseous. But I can definitely power through. I will just say, if there's ever a week to kind of like de-weight my opinion, it would be this week. Like, I'm really not that smart. Like, my entire edge over everyone. Like, I think I'm great. I think I'm like one of the best DFS analysts. I just don't think I'm that smart. I think what gives me my edge is I just put in an insane amount of hours, and I have like an amazing research process that's been carefully cultivated over many years and perfected. And so I missed like 3 full days, and that's going to be huge for me. So, but I'm going to do my best. I still actually feel pretty great about this slate. So I'm excited to dig in.
I think that you are underselling how smart you are, for one thing, but also I think that, even if you haven't had the time to dig into this week as much as usual, like you've been doing this all year, you did it all, you have years of experience digging into the data. So I think we'll be fine. We'll find, I don't think people should be devaluing your opinion. I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think that we'll be able to identify some of the best plays on the slate. Anyway,
these are also like typically our most profitable weeks. Is like I usually smash the last month of the season. So
nice.
Yeah, definitely want to take advantage of that this slate, which again, it looks like a fun one.
Yep. Before we dive into this slate, we should take a look at last week's slate. I'll take a look at the Millie Maker winner. But before I look at the Millie, I got to say, Scott, I talk about the RB2 sometimes that gets overlooked. Last week, your call was Chris Rodriguez from the Commanders, 2 touchdown game out of Chris Rodriguez. That one worked out okay.
Yeah, that was the entire thesis of the play too. Is like, he could fall into the end zone twice, and lo and behold, yeah, it's just that one was easy. The week before, he played on 6 of the team's 6 snaps inside the 10-yard line, so we knew he had that role, and you kind of put me on it too, because like I think before we started doing the show, I would always just like, I'm not playing an RB2, screw that, but there's upside there, and it's cheap, and no one's playing that. So I think on the lineups I had with him, I stacked with Commanders defense, which didn't really work out as well, but yeah, finally a super galaxy brain hit. Nice, love it.
I mean, finally, you've nailed. I mean, Rashid Shaheed at low ownership a couple times. There have been Noah Brown. That was like you probably drove up the ownership. I think you've had several of those Galaxy Brain plays that absolutely smashed this year. So hopefully we can find some of those again this week. But first, we're going to take a look back at last week real quick. And I pulled up the Millie Maker winning lineup. Now, the Joe Flacco, I mean, what you really needed from this stack was Amari Cooper, Joe Flacco to a lesser extent, and then Njoku looked good too. Sadly for me, Scott, the only exposure I had last week to either Joe Flacco or Amari Cooper was the lineup that you and I built on the stream. We did a double stack of this exact Joe Flacco, Amari Cooper, David Njoku. It otherwise did not go so well for us because we had 2 runbacks from the Texans in that one. We had Devin Singletary, who was kind of disappointing, and Noah Brown, who was very disappointing. So they kind of tanked that stack for us, but got the important part right, which was the primary stack here. Really went off. Joe Flacco for 30, Amari Cooper 54.5, David Njoku 16.5. That stack absolutely smashed last week. Jahmyr Gibbs, 25 points against the Vikings. Usually a pretty good defense. Jahmyr Gibbs did not care. Breece Hall, another player that I think we were on a little bit last week.
Yeah, we were.
43 fantasy points for Breece Hall. Like, we just had some massive scores last week that offset. I mean, Tyler Lockett, a player that I loved last week, he didn't really get it done. 16 fantasy points, made it in here, but it wasn't because of Tyler Lockett. KJ Osborne, 20.5 fantasy points. I know you are not a KJ Osborne fan, but he's been a guy that there have been a few weeks this year that I've been on KJ Osborne. Did not get the 20 fantasy points out of him at all until this game. So that was disappointing. And then, of course, we have Mike Evans, who's been smashing all year, just continues to smash, paired with the Bucs defense also. Anything that stand out to you in this lineup?
Yeah, so I put in the most money I've ever put in DFS last week. I played the 555 milli, and I came close to finishing dead last. I made 4 lineups. I put the 3 into like a 3 entry, and then the lineup I went with was a Dallas Miami game stack at low ownership, and like that obviously didn't work out. And I think I've discovered a hole in my game, so I'm kind of like glad that I sucked last week. Gonna fine tune the process a little bit, but the 3 entry max lineups, one was a Flacco double, the other was a Mayfield double with Calvin Ridley on the bring back, and obviously that smashed. And a bunch of our subs smashed last week. One guy won 100K, someone won 30K, and a bunch of stuff like that. And a lot of those lineups had the Flacco double plus the Evans Ridley mini, which was just like so awesome.
Yeah.
And then Breece Hall versus Garrett Wilson. Like, I knew one of those guys was going to just go nuclear. I felt really good about my stance on the running backs that week. So I was just kind of like wish casting it would be Wilson, because I felt a little less confident in the wide receivers. Shout out to John Proctor, who was all over Cleveland doubles and Amari going nuclear, because I was worried about game script initially, but it's like, no. Flacco is the guy who is like, they're trying to make a playoff push. So like, now's their chance to let him air it out, build rapport with the receivers. I thought that was a really good play. But yeah, that last week was a unique week where it really came down to just, did you have Breece Hall? Did you have Amari Cooper? Did you have the Evans Ridley mini? But this person might've been a time traveler, because KJ Osborne, after Hawkinson and Addison both go down with injury. Last week was a really fun slate. Didn't work out great for me, but I think that was just a bad process decision. I hopefully have rectified.
Yeah, it didn't. I feel like I had a lot of the pieces you needed last week. Like, it went fairly well for me. Like, I didn't. I think I actually may have profited. I might be totally misremembering. Oh no, I think I profited because my hand built like high dollar lineup did well. But I had, as I said, just one lineup with Amari Cooper, and it was the lineup that you and I built that maybe min cashed. I don't even know if it did min cash. So it was really, you needed Amari Cooper to do any real damage last week. And sadly, it was weird because I wasn't like not on Amari Cooper. Like, I actually drafted him in some underdog drafts, but just for whatever reason, I look at my lineups after he's going off. I'm like, damn it. Somehow I ended up with 0 in my final player exposure, which, he wasn't somebody that I was like super targeting, but he was somebody that I had interest in and just did not end up getting there as much as I should have. So that was disappointing. But this Steven looks like he took it down with just 2 lineups here. So congrats to Steven. Lots of numbers, probably a bot, right? Steven, lots of numbers.
Traveling bot for sure.
Yeah.
Sentient AI.
Looking at the top lineups here, I mean, we had Star Pack, another single entry, is in second in the melee.
Wow.
Orphelia, 9. That is not me, Orphelia, for the record. 9 lineups, 3rd place. Like, we had a lot of. You have to go down to like 9th or 10th place to find tan guys. So I honestly am not familiar with tan guys. 150 lineups. We got a few of those in the top, but a lot of single entries, 2-3 entries making it to the top last week. So that's kind of cool to see. Even as somebody who plays a lot of lineups, I love to see the guys who don't play a lot of lineups winning some money. All right. Should we dive into this slate? Start with some quarterbacks?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So starting with, this is the stochastic top stacks tool. I'm sorted by top stack odds right now, and the top stack on the slate is Philadelphia. Actually, we usually start by, let's take a look at the highest owned quarterbacks. So we can talk about how much interest, if any, you have in those highest owned quarterbacks. That's interesting. We've got Tyrod Taylor up here. So we've got Jalen Hurts at nearly 18% ownership, Tyrod Taylor 11%, Brock Purdy 10%. So starting with those three, Scott, how much interest do you have in these quarterbacks?
Yeah, I'm not really into Jalen Hurts as much as everyone else. It's just like maybe we should have started with this big picture macro view of the slate. It's
Sure.
the big three of CMC, Kyron, and Tyreek, and paying up for quarterback limits the availability of getting to those plays. It's also like Hurts, I think, is, I don't know. I think he is overrated stackable upside. Like we haven't seen a GPP winning score out of Devonta Smith or AJ Brown, and maybe since late October. It's also a game where, shouldn't be competitive, should be massively run heavy. Obviously, the counter argument is, Hurts is the goal line back, so it's just 17.6%. That's not how I'm going to be approaching the slate. I probably won't have any exposure, and I'll feel fine.
You're wrong about that, for the record. You're going to have at least one.
All right. That's fair. But that's really just like how I'm approaching the slate and how I'm getting unique. Let's do a little detour and talk about what I'm viewing as like what defines the slate. And that's that Christian McCaffrey is a god. He's the, best, most valuable fantasy player since prime LaDainian Tomlinson. He's also extremely matchup sensitive this year. Like not really, because he's going to score 22.5 DK at an absolute minimum, regardless of matchup. But like this season, when facing bottom 5 defenses, he's averaging 39.8 DraftKings fantasy points per game. And now he gets the best possible matchup since firing Jack Del Rio. Washington still has easily one of the worst pass defenses in football. And now they're down 2 starting cornerbacks and a starting safety, but also easily the worst, or rivaling Arizona, the worst run defense. Part of that's a function of Ron Rivera going to more too high coverage, lighter fronts for the running backs. But again, he's a god in a nuts matchup. He has like plus 400 odds to score 3 touchdowns this week. Just an absolute freak of nature. And then Kyron Williams, it's basically the same thing. He's drawing half as much ownership as Christian McCaffrey. He's 1,300 cheaper. He also has an easy top 5 matchup against the Giants. And like CMC, he's been he has unrivaled upside in favorable matchups against bottom 10 defenses. He averages 33.9 DraftKings fantasy points per game. I think the Rams should have the best average starting field position of any defense. I think they're going to have a ton of red zone drives. And what do we know about Kyron is he leads all players in red zone XFP per game, really the focal point of the offense inside the red zone. And then Tyreek Hill, 9,300, 12. We're showing 12% ownership, which seems crazy low. And it just goes back to the thesis of the Jalen Waddle play, which, made me a lot of money. Rich Rebar had the stat on plays without Jalen Waddle. Tyreek Hill has run 120 routes, 57 targets. He's basically being targeted 1 out of every 2.1 routes. That's insane volume. And we know that, I don't know, 1 Tyreek target is worth 2 targets to anyone else. So just 3 guys with massive break the slate upside. And so one of the things I was talking to about with Russ, who won $1 million, one of our subs,
Miller. Yep.
Yeah. Earlier in the season. And again, I was critiquing my play from last week because I didn't think the process was good. And like a few of the conclusions I drew, one is like I get too excited about these low owned, high total game stacks like Miami, Dallas last week, just because like the upside is massive if that is the game you needed to have and no one else had it. But that's like not really where I think my edge is. My edge is more just like, and it's the same thing with like paying up for players. Like if a guy is really expensive and low owned, I like, you know, or having a stars and scrubs build that the field isn't being drawn to in that given week. But like, that's not my edge. I feel like it's more just targeting the 6 to 7K range and just trying to have a lineup with guys scoring 20 to 25, every single guy scoring 20 to 25. But this week, I just want to have that one unique lineup where I have all three and no one else has all three. Where it feels like, you know, Infinity Gauntlets or whatever that the Avengers movie is.
Sure.
Where it's just like these guys all have break the slate upside. And like the floor is still like even a bad game seems really high for all of these guys. And it's unique in that we're late in the season. A lot of value has opened up. And I don't know, this is just like what I've been going back and forth on is like, I feel like you need 2, maybe 3 is crazy. I don't know, but I feel like you need 2 on every lineup.
That's really interesting. So you think you need 2 of CMC, Kyren Williams, and Tyreek in every lineup? Is going to be your approach? Yeah.
So we can go back to quarterback based on what I just told you.
Yep.
Should it surprise you that I like Tyrod because Tyrod stacked with Darius Slayton, you know, can fit you theoretically all 3. And then would it surprise you if I told you Brock Purdy's easily going to be my highest owned quarterback? Because, well, I have a hard time imagining CMC flops, but this is just the nut spot. Like I was saying, Washington, the worst run defense right now, or them or Arizona, but like no one else beyond them comes close. And then the worst pass defense over the last 5 weeks across the full season. And they're down 2 starting cornerbacks and a starting safety. And I think Kyle Shanahan, you know, wants a get right game for Purdy, you know, after being embarrassed last week. And this is the most potent offense in football that could just do whatever the fuck they want this week. And so it would be Purdy, no CMC, with Debo for sure. And then probably Kittle on DraftKings because he's cheaper. But maybe Ayuk, like I could see Ayuk hitting as well. And so that's what I like a lot.
All right, we'll flesh out the receivers once we get to receivers, but definitely Purdy stands out to me as well. Somebody that I have a lot of interest in. And one of the first players I looked at on the slate is like, yeah, that looks like an elite stack. And as you said, great leverage off of CMC. So from what I'm hearing, you are not very interested in playing Purdy with CMC, or do you think you'll maybe do some of that too?
I think, you know, like in the double spy, I'll have that, but outside of, you know, small field, high dollar, I would just try and chase the upside and like hope it's I don't know, a Purdy game, like Purdy goes nuclear. Shanahan wants to, you know, rebuild his confidence or put him back in the MVP consideration, whatever. Again, I don't know. They could do whatever the fuck they want this week.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of love that, thinking about it like that, of like, and I think I've said it several times, you know, like earlier in the year when I was on Devontae Smith, a lot of the time it was like, well, the Eagles should be able to do whatever they want. Maybe they want to get the guy going that hasn't done it all this year. I sometimes like it's because it's impossible to like really know, to like sim it out, to be like, okay, the coach is going to want to get that guy the ball. So like, it's not going to pop in any kind of simulation, but like just thinking through, like, what are the motivations here? I could definitely see that being a motivation for Kyle Shanahan, wanting to get Brock Purdy's confidence back up. And this would be a great spot to do it against this Commanders defense. So I love that thought of,
this isn't super relevant, but it's just like an interesting fact, I guess. But Peyton Manning used to do that with his receivers. Like if Demaryius Thomas went off this week, he's like, all right, Eric Decker, next week it's you. And like he talked about that. Like he said that's what he does. And like that's just like kind of insane that he's playing at that sort of level. But yeah, I mean, like there's
sense.
Yeah, these narratives are real. Like you got to factor that in.
Yeah. We were asked, what is Galaxy Brain? We were talking about Galaxy Brain plays. Susie asked, what is Galaxy Brain? I was trying to think of like, what is a good definition for Galaxy Brain? It mostly just means like thoughts that most people aren't having. I guess.
No, it's like you're thinking way too deep on something.
Yeah.
Too like negative.
Oh, you think that Galaxy Brain is naturally negative? I don't think of it as necessarily a negative. That was what somebody responded in chat with the same thing. So maybe I'm wrong about the definition.
Here,
I think of Galaxy Brain just being like you open up your third eye and you're just you're thinking, deeper than you probably need to, but like not necessarily a bad thing. I don't know. Yeah, you could pull up
unorthodox thinking.
Yeah, okay. Unorthodox. Okay, that's good. That's good.
All right.
Yeah, so that's all we mean when we say it's a Galaxy Brain play. It means like, yeah, it's not necessarily coming from any kind of projection or the tools. It's just like it's us, opening up our third eye and looking at what could happen. All right, let's talk about so we talked about the top three. So that's funny that you like Tyrod Taylor. He was one that I'm like, all right, well, that's a clear, like I can write off Tyrod Taylor, but you make a good point as far as just lineup construction. Maybe I'll have a little bit there. I think I like Jalen Hurts a little bit better than you do, although it's a fair point that they haven't really done it. Like the stack has not been working out. It's just such a great matchup that I have I'll be playing some Philadelphia stacks for sure. Moving on down. What do you think about Houston stacks this week with CJ Stroud returning against a pass funnel Tennessee defense? Maybe people have kind of forgotten how good CJ Stroud has been this year. Any interest in going there?
Yeah, I think like the counter argument to it has like won me over, and that's just that you can capture all the upside by just playing Nico Collins, who's an amazing play. He's a great play. But I don't know. Dalton Schultz could do it. Noah Brown, I like him. I just don't think he's anywhere close to full health. Okay. But yeah. I mean, this was one of the biggest cheat codes in DFS is like, and Stroud was, like it was him and Dak Prescott as like the two best quarterbacks in fantasy, just averaging 350 plus yards per game over their hot streaks. And he should be fully healthy. So I think that's a good call. I don't know that I'm going to land on that this week, but I like it, and I'm definitely going to have a lot of Nico.
All right, let me just open it up to you rather than asking about individual corps. I'll open it up to you, and then if you don't name anybody that I want to talk about, I'll ask about them. Who else are you thinking you are interested in this week?
I will say Jacoby Brissett I was gonna be probably highest owned quarterback, but Aaron Wilson's reporting that he is out and Sam Howell is going to start. Outside of that, maybe Baker. He's just been so money. He's been fantastic, and the dub stack has been potent, whether that's Rashad White and Mike Evans or Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Actually, who I like more than that? Matthew Stafford, another quarterback who's just been absolutely on fire. You worry about this game being a massive blowout, but his best games have kind of come in positive blowouts. Sean McVay has always kept his foot on the gas deep into the fourth quarter. And this is just like a team that's just given up, and it's a bad defense. I love Kyron Williams, but who knows? Maybe it's a Matthew Stafford game, or maybe you could play both. That worked for me a couple of weeks back. Jake Tribby's really into Will Levis. He's into Justin Fields. He wrote those guys up for me in the slate breakdown. There is one quarterback. I'm sorry, Neil. I'm just going to have to like not mention who that is and what the stack is, just because one, it's like, it was kind of Johnny was on it first. And then two, I got sources information on it. And so like Russ sent me a lineup, and it was basically the exact same lineup I already had. And then another sub sent me a lineup, and it was exactly the same lineup that Russ had. So I don't want that to be more owned than it's already going to be. So that, if you want to know what that is, you can hit me up on the Fantasy Points Discord. But I'm just going to keep that one stack secret for now.
Okay, well, you don't have to tell us what the stack is, but I do want to ask you about some quarterbacps as well.
Yeah, let's do that.
So
I'll try and if you ask about it, I'll try and play it cool.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So the other stacks that I wanted to talk about, I already asked about Stroud. First of all, any interest in some Mahomes against? I mean, Cincinnati's defense has been so bad. I know it's tough to know who's going to pair with. Often the receivers have not been getting there. Any interest in some Mahomes against Cincinnati?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, that's a nuts matchup, and he's Mahomes. It's just he hasn't been good for fantasy for 2 months now, and you know what? Like everyone's just blaming on the receivers, but he's not playing well. He's not seeing the field well. Shout out Greg Cosell, who went on a mini rant about this on the Ross Tucker show a couple of days ago, and he's not that cheap. And like, what's the stackable upside? Rashee Rice, obviously, but I mean, Kelsey kind of looks like he's 2 games away from retirement, 3 games away from retirement. Not the same old Kelsey. So that's not something I'm going to land on, but I understand it. I get it. I wouldn't fault you for going that route.
Okay. And this one, I'm just going to tell you guys what Scott's Galaxy Rain play is. And he's not going to tell me if I'm wrong. I'm going to guess that it's Josh Allen playing against New England. It's obviously not a matchup that jumps out at you that you want to play against the Patriots. However, they do have a 27 implied total. Buffalo really needs to win. So I have interest in, and you can see here 3% ownership going to Josh Allen, 7% chance of being the top stack for Buffalo. I'm probably wrong. For the record, I have not read whatever Scott wrote, so I'm just speculating. I'm like, that's my guess, is that it's Josh Allen. Do you have any interest in Josh Allen Bills stacks this week?
Well, my mystery quarterback wasn't in my slate breakdown. This is kind of developed lately, more recently. So yeah, that's going to be in Discord if you want to find that. Josh Allen, again, no, I think this slate is defined by those big 3 players with slate breaking upside. So I'm really going to try and I'm really getting away from the high price quarterbacks. Like the highest price quarterback to me, who I'll be playing, is Purdy. And with Josh Allen, it's like, okay, he has 6 rushing touchdowns in his last 3 or 4 games. That's awesome, but he's not really doing a lot through the air. It's not really efficient. We've seen with Joe Brady taking over, the team going massively run heavy by pass rate over expectation. And who do you stack him with? Gabe Davis scores 0 2 out of every 3 games. Stephon Diggs has been a ghost for 2 months. The tight ends cannibalize each other's production in a part-time role. Khalil Shakir is a part-time player as well. So it's just not something that gets me excited.
Okay. So my counterpoint, I actually kind of love it when a player that I know has the talent and they should want to get him the ball hasn't done anything recently, because it's just going to drive people away. Stephon Diggs to me is the guy that I want to pair him with. And I get it. Like, he has been a ghost for a long time. He is on my main fantasy team. He has been letting me down for months. So I totally understand not wanting to go there, but I sort of love it when it's like, I know that this is their best receiver. They know that this is their best receiver. They're trying to get to the playoffs. They should want to be getting and going. I don't know. I have interest in the Josh Allen, Stephon, but I should have also known that was not your stack, since you've already told me that you don't like playing the expensive guys this week. All right. 0 for 1 in terms of guesses. I'll keep. So then I'm guessing, because you don't want to play expensive guys, you're not going to be playing. Another couple that I have interest in are Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, 2 quarterbacks that I have interest in, who are, I think, a little bit more expensive. I could be wrong about the price tags there, but do you have any interest in either of those 2?
Yeah, again, Jake made a compelling argument for Justin Fields. Atlanta just really vulnerable to hypermobile quarterbacks. I think quarterbacks are averaging 10.9 yards per carry on scrambles. Wow. Shout out to Graham Barfield for that stat. But my issue with both quarterbacks, it's the same. It's just lack of healthy receivers. I don't think DJ Moore is healthy. Cole Kmet isn't healthy. Marquise Brown is out. And it's like the nuts matchup for Arizona side, particularly their perimeter wide receivers. And it's just like, okay, Greg Dortch is fine, but outside of that, I don't trust anyone. Trey McBride, okay, yeah, like that's obvious, but is that enough for a ceiling game? I don't see that happening.
Okay. And then the only other, so I don't think I'm going to Carolina. Maybe I could see that being a Galaxy Brain play. I've seen a lot of people in chat talking about Carolina, and they are standing out as Jacksonville, the worst against quarterbacks. I was going to go to the other side of that game, to CJ Beathard, which I don't have a ton of confidence there, but that's somebody that Carolina's been a lot better than I realized against the pass recently. So maybe that was the reason I wanted to go there. Is Carolina has been so bad defensively for most of the year, but looks like over the past 5 weeks they have been a little bit better. So that was one that I was going to bring up.
Well, why not Bryce Young in the best possible matchup? He finally had a good game. Finally.
Because I've been playing him all year and he's been letting me down. Yeah, I guess he did finally have a good game, and he is a rookie quarterback who theoretically should be getting better throughout the year. And as you said, does have I did not realize until looking at this just now that this is the best possible matchup. I knew Jacksonville, I had heard the rumblings. They say that they want to force teams to throw on them. Apparently they've been doing that. So over the past 5 weeks, giving up way more schedule adjusted fantasy points to quarterbacks over expectation, both in terms of pass and the rush. So it sounds like you do have some interest in a very cheap Bryce Young.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to land on that, but I do have interest. DJ Chark too. Like, I know that feels like chasing points, but the guy just scored 30 DK. He's 3,600. He 3% owned in a top 5 matchup. Yeah, I think that's a really strong stack.
I think we've talked about the fact that DJ Chark was my highest exposed quarterback in best ball and literally did 0 the entire year while he was on my team. And then the week after all of my DJ Chark lineups were knocked out, he goes off for 2 touchdowns, 98 yards.
Yeah, that's
so brutal. I'm so mad at DJ Chark right now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, all right. Any other quarterbacks that you want to talk about?
No, I'll just say we didn't get to my mystery quarterback, and that's fine. Don't put your pressure on me.
All right. I'm not going to force Scott to talk about his mystery quarterback. You can go find it in your Discord. You said you put it in Discord?
Yeah.
All right. There is a mystery quarterback out there who is going to put up 5 fantasy points, because there's no other good quarterbacks on this slate. I don't even see it. No, I'm sure I'm just missing somebody. All right. Let's move on. Talk about some running backs here. Pull up our highest owned running back. So we'll start with the highest ownership going to Christian. I mean, we've already talked about Christian McCaffrey at length. We can talk about the chalky running backs in general. McCaffrey, Zamir White at 27% ownership, Saquon Barkley at 16%. Earlier we had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who is now questionable. This clearly this is not going to be correct. That's gonna change. I think it's just a matter of we don't really know if he's playing right now. So maybe some sites have him out, some sites have him projecting well point per dollar. I don't know. Anyway, McCaffrey, Zamir White, Saquon Barkley. What's your level of interest in these top 3 in terms of ownership?
Again, yeah, Christian McCaffrey should score 50 DK this week. He's an awesome play. Zamir White, I think, is an excellent value. I don't know. He's averaging 20 carries, 2.5 targets, 17.5 DK fantasy points per game the last 2 weeks without Josh Jacobs. It's an easy top 3 matchup against the Colts. You can worry about game script. You can play Jonathan Taylor as a leverage play. But I kind of think Vegas is wrong. And I think Raiders win this game. And I think they do it through Zamir like they did last week. I don't think they had a single completion in the final 3 quarters of the game. And the Colts are just so bad against the run. Like, I could easily see 100 plus rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns for Zamir White. So I think he's a really good play. I think Saquon Barkley, not really into the Giants or Barkley, just because they have like a 13-point implied total. I just think there are better plays, but I get it.
Would you consider in a Ram stack, like if you're going with the Stafford stack, maybe as a run back?
No, I like Slayton this week.
Okay,
that's what I would do.
That's right. All right, so those are the chalky options. We already talked about also Kyron Williams. We've got him at 10% ownership.
He should be 30%.
Yeah, it's funny. He doesn't look good here, and yet I'm still salivating at playing some Kyren Williams against the Giants. So I think I'm going to. That's the spot where I'm going to play him anyway, despite negative leverage. Could end up biting me, but it's such a good spot for Kyren. He gets so much volume against a bad Giants defense. Yeah, hard not to love Kyren this week. Any other running backs that we haven't talked about already that you want to talk about?
Yeah, Zeke seems a little light at 6K. The guy is averaging 15.5 receiving fantasy points per game the last 3 weeks. Just that's like insane volume. Like if you just look at running backs who average, let's see what he's done the last 3 weeks.
Let me pull it up. I can show the bell cow report.
Yeah. So
damn, 61 expected fantasy points over the past 3 weeks. I did not realize that they had like literally zero other running back doing anything. Kevin Harris, 17 snaps, 11 carries. It's been the Zeke show entirely for the past 3 weeks.
Yeah, so that's 15 carries per game and 8.3 targets per game. Like if you look back over the last decade, all instances of a running back getting 8 targets and 15 carries, those running backs average, I don't know, 28 fantasy points per game. And so like I know Zeke, might be somewhat washed. I know that this is one of the worst offenses in football with like an extremely low implied point total. But that's still just like crazy usage, crazy volume. Also, an 86% snap share. That's massive. So he's another strong value. I prefer Zamir, but Zeke is definitely up there for sure.
I feel like we need to talk about the Chiefs running backs also, because like as I said, Clyde Edwards-Helaire currently is questionable to play. We have the price on CEH 5,300. Great matchup against the Bengals. So there's some possibility Clyde Edwards-Helaire plays. At this point, I feel like it's slightly more likely that he sits because they called up Keontae Ingram from the practice squad. They also have LaMichael Pirine there. What is your level of interest in CEH if he plays or if he sits any other backup running backs for the Chiefs?
Well, I think Pacheco is going to play, and I think CEH is going to.
I thought Pacheco was
not
going to play.
He got a limited practice in on Friday. And CEH just has an illness. Basically, like I've devoted zero thought to this, and I'll wait till the news hits and then come up with something. But yeah, it's kind of a little too murky for me right now. And I do think most likely is both guys play.
Interesting. All right. I've been working under the assumption that Pacheco was out. So I guess that's just a keep your eye on the news situation, because maybe somebody will come into play, but we'll have to see who is starting. I guess I incorrectly was thinking that Pacheco was already ruled out. All right. Well, let me just open it up to you. What other running backs do you have interest in?
Well, there's James Cook at the top. He's a good, really good play. Jonathan Taylor, again, I'm not really into him, but he works as Zamir White leverage. You can play Javonte stacked with Broncos defense. That's fine. I like Bijan Robinson quite a bit. You can sort of quibble with the upside. Just, Tyler Algier is there. But I mean, like the volume has been great. The volume last week was awesome. He had 75 rushing yards and 10 targets. 72 rushing yards, 10 targets, 7 catches, 50 receiving yards. And this is like the nuts matchup. The Bears are, if you go back to schedule adjusted and click on receiving under running back. Do it for all the full season. Yeah. So they're like twice as bad against running backs through the air as anyone else. And again, he had 10 targets last week. That is sort of where he excels. I don't know. Johnny kind of talked me back off of him. Just like, does he have slate breaking potential? I feel like he should, and he's just kind of running bad. Like he's not breaking off any long runs. Like his longest run of the year is 38 yards and then 32 yards, and he didn't score a touchdown on either one. Like when he was coming out of college, you'd think there would be a little bit more Breece Hall to his game. and we're just not seeing that. But yeah, I mean, he's at least very interesting.
Okay.
But again, really to me, like the running back position is CMC, Kyron, Zamir, maybe Zeke. I will say for leverage, Raheem Mostert or Devon Achane, I keep playing this. I keep like desperately wanting to see this hit, and it just hasn't happened these last few weeks. And I think it's because both running backs are seriously hurt.
Yeah.
And I think we saw Jeff Wilson mix in more last week. And so I'm probably not going to play it, but just like the theoretical upside is clearly there. We saw earlier in the season, both of them score, like 35 DK. Achane, the sort of player who only needs, a handful of touches to do it. But yep, probably a little too thin for me this week.
Yeah, that was I want to say I thought they put up 99 total fantasy points between them in that game against the Broncos, Mostert and Achane. Maybe I'm misremembering. And that's on DraftKings where you get a bonus for yardage and stuff too, but it was insane.
You might be right, yeah.
Yeah, looking at last week, 15 snaps for Jeff Wilson, 19 for Mostert, 35 for Achane. And then Alec Ingold obviously can be out in there with one of the halfbacks, but all right. What about Travis Etienne against Carolina? Maybe again, I was incorrect about Carolina being bad over the past 5 weeks. But let me look at running back. Yeah, I guess Carolina, the defense has been better recently than it had been earlier in the year. Earlier, they were just an awful defense. Looks like they have really picked it up.
Yeah, and Etienne's like really fallen off a cliff. Like he was a top 3 fantasy running back the first half of the season, and then just nothing since then. Yeah, I'm not really into it, but I could see it happening. They just go super run heavy with Beathard, and he's a good player, but I wouldn't target it.
Yeah, it was one of those similar to Diggs to me, where it's like, yeah, he hasn't done it recently, but we know he has it in him. But yeah, maybe he's fallen off enough that it's not as interesting as I want it to be. Any others that you want to talk about?
I don't think so.
What about Galaxy Brain Kenneth Gainwell against the Cardinals? Like, could be a spot where I feel like I've tried doing it. It hasn't really worked out. But Gainwell continues to have a pretty good role for the Eagles. Let me look at last week. 29 snaps last week to Swift's 42. 3 targets. They have the same route participation. Swift clearly still the guy, though. 20 rushing attempts last week to Gainwell's 6. Just thinking, like, maybe if the game gets out of hand, the Eagles do. I know last year it happened frequently where the Eagles would get off to a big lead and then they would stop passing in the second half. I don't think they've really done it as much this year. Maybe it just they haven't been in that situation as much this year, but there's a part of me that's like, well, maybe they just go to Gainwell at that point. But he is a big enough part of the offense that maybe they just go to, I don't know, a third running back. That Rashad Penny has not been active, but whoever else they would want to play at running back. Just trying to think of a Galaxy Brain play there. Maybe I'll have a little bit of exposure, but I'd obviously like Gainwell a lot better if he was the stone minimum. He is 5,100, which is kind of a hefty price tag for somebody who doesn't get that much volume.
Yeah, I wouldn't chase that. He's kind of why I don't really like Swift this week. It's just like way more of a committee, and we know Jalen Hurts is the goal line back. Similarly, like I've heard Singletary hyped up. He had like a 35% snap share last week with Dari Agumbawale mixing in a lot more. Scroll all the way to the top. Rachaad White, he's a good play. It's just like you don't really need to say anything about Rachaad White at this point. And keep an eye on Kenneth Walker's status. I'm pretty sure he's going to play, but just in case he's not, obviously Zach Charbonnet becomes like a nuts play who allows you to pay up for the big 3 we keep talking about.
I feel like Rachaad White is like 18 to 24 fantasy points every week. Like he never has like that like need to have it 35-40 point game, but he also never busts. He's just been consistently like pretty good and like good enough that he could be in a winning lineup. The price tag keeps coming up. So 7,600, you kind of need the high end of his range. And obviously he could go higher than that. That's kind of where he's been in kind of a thin band, but he obviously could just score an extra touchdown or something. JT, did you talk about Taylor? I think
a little. I'm not super into it. It's just it works as leverage against Zamir White. That would be the argument.
Okay. Eckler kind of surprised me. I thought that they were going to start playing the backups a little bit more. They said that a few weeks ago. More recently, however, in this most recent game, I mean, Austin Eckler, 66% snap share, 15 rushing attempts in that game. Also 51% route decision. Like, clearly the number one guy for the Chargers really could have killed me on the Saturday slate last week, because I was not playing very little Eckler and playing Isaiah Spiller instead, and that didn't bite me because Eckler didn't get into the end zone somehow. But any interest here against the Broncos?
Yeah, not for me, but I get it.
Okay. All right. Any other running backs, or should we move on to wide receivers?
No, let's move on.
All right. Tyjae Spears, is that a Galaxy brain play that could work? I don't know. It's maybe.
Yeah, I'm not into that, but could work.
I just look real quick at the Titans. Yeah, actually outsnapped Derrick Henry last week, but 9 to 19 rushing attempts, 60% routes.
I mean, 9 carries, 6 targets. Like, he's outsnapped Henry multiple times. Like, that doesn't matter to me if those are meaningless, pass blocking snaps. But 6 targets, 9 carries, that's fine. It's a little too thin for me. Questionable upside.
All right. I think I might have a little bit of exposure just because they do have a decent matchup against the Titans, but I get it. Yeah, it's a splitting carry that's a little bit tough. All right, at wide receiver, sorted by ownership, we have Demario Douglas. He's 4,300, our highest owned wide receiver, about 20%. Tyreek Hill, number 2, at 16%. Zay Flowers, 16%. Michael Pittman, 14. Rashee Rice, 14. Of these top 5, are there any major fades for you? Do you think the ownership is fair? Do you want to go way overexposed to any of them?
Yeah, let's talk about the top 7. A lot of bad plays here. Demario Douglas, top 3 cash play, bad GPP play. He's maybe not bad, but at this ownership, like, I'm not going to be playing him. He's the Patriots' new Jacoby Myers, which means, he's going to get 8 or 9 targets, 50 to 70 yards, and 0 touchdowns. Has 0 touchdowns in the year. So questionable tournament winning ceiling, and he's carrying ownership. Tyreek Hill should be 33% owned this week. Awesome play. Insane break the slate upside. Zay Flowers, again, probably top 5 cash play. Probably not a good GPP play. I don't think he's hit 80 receiving yards at all this season. He's good for like 1 deep target per game, and then a bunch of screens, bunch of low ADOT screens. So he'll get those PPRs, but again, carrying ownership, questionable ceiling. Michael Pittman, I think he's a good play. You can make the same argument, maybe overstated ceiling, but just one like tournament winning performance this year. But to me, I don't know. He just reminds me of Keenan Allen. Just the usage, the volume is so good with Gardner Minshew. And he's great. He looks great. He's balling out. Just for those who are only listening to the show and not watching it, it looks like Pacheco cleared the protocol. He's going to play tomorrow. So there's your answer there. Rashee Rice, again, another top 5 cash play, strong value, really seemingly supplanted Travis Kelce as the Chiefs' number 1 receiver. He's getting a lot of designed looks like Zay Flowers, which is good. That raises your floor. This is a nuts matchup. Terry McLaurin, I could get on board with this ownership if Brissett was starting. If not really about it. We know, McLaurin's best game came with like 2 drives with Jacoby Brissett, whereas Sam Howell isn't playing well. And like, we know he just locks on to slot wide receivers as he's done dating back to college. Wan'Dale Robinson, why does he ever get ownership? I hate it. Like, it drives me insane. The guy has no ceiling, especially now with Darren Waller back. That's bad.
I feel like you use the example of Wan'Dale Robinson every time we're talking about a player with no ceiling.
So angry.
You hate Wan'Dale Robinson. I don't hate him as much as you do. When he is getting low ownership, because I'm like, he's had games where he's had like, I don't know, like 15 or 16 fantasy points without scoring a touchdown. So to me, it's like, yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, he doesn't have that like single play necessarily big. He's not going to put up a big score on a single play, like that type of upside. But like, if he gets 8 catches for like 100 yards, which I think is possible, and a touchdown, like, I don't know. It's maybe I'm.
I don't think he has 100-yard upside with Waller back. I don't think even close. He's also not a full-time player. And it's a bad offense with like a 13-point implied point total.
Yeah. This week I think I'm with you. I'm pushing back a little bit on the no ceiling. So I mean, I think there have been weeks where it's like if he just scored a touchdown too, that would be enough. Like he would have had a big game. So it's like I agree with you. Like he doesn't have maybe the 30 fantasy point ceiling that you sometimes want, but like at his price tag, I don't hate him as much as you do. I guess is what I'm saying. I think that the lack of ceiling is maybe a little bit overstated.
Well, part of it is I think there's a lot of cheap players who are interesting with upside this week.
Sure, and he's coming in at 10% ownership. So this week I think I'm with you that is too much, and obviously the tools say 6% chance of being optimal. So the tools agree with you in that sense also. All right. You brought up Pittman, so I was just going to look real quick at Week 16 stats for the Colts. Who was running the routes for the Colts? I mean, we have Kyle Branson.
Well, Pittman was out.
Yeah. Okay. But then the number 2 receiver, just looking at, we had Alec Pierce and Josh Downs both running significant routes, along with DJ Montgomery, who I would expect to be supplanted when Pittman comes back. Just trying to figure out, always thinking through who is Scott's mystery quarterback. And that is another name that I was thinking about throwing out there. Everybody in chat thinks that it's Derek Carr, but we don't need to continue that discussion.
It's definitely not Derek Carr. You guys don't know me well enough, apparently. Yeah, can we go back to wide receiver though?
Yep.
Because I found something else that kind of annoyed me. Brandon Ayuk at 9%. Where is Deebo Samuel?
8%.
Okay, all right. Well, Deebo should probably be 28%, I think.
So you like Deebo? I guess you said that earlier. You like Deebo better than Ayuk, and I wanted to come back to why you like Deebo better than Ayuk. I know in recent weeks it's been pretty clearly Deebo has been better than Ayuk. He's gotten, I guess last week Ayuk ended up getting there right at the end, but in general Deebo's been better recently. But you just think you trust Deebo. You think going forward he is the better play.
So this is the nuts matchup for both wide receivers. Okay. They're down 2 starting cornerbacks and a starting safety, and this was already the worst secondary in football. These 2 wide receivers are going to spend most of their day against a cornerback who's played 0 snaps in their career, and the only cornerback worse than that guy, Emmanuel Forbes. And so should just go absolutely nuclear. Why I like Deebo more is, well, he's just been more productive. Since week 11, he ranks behind only Tyreek in fantasy points per game. Ayuk ranks 20th. And so like our sources told us last year to prioritize Ayuk over Deebo because Deebo showed up to camp fat and out of weight and out of shape and looked like shit. And what happened the year before that was he put together one of the greatest fantasy wide receiver seasons of all time, especially on a per touch basis. This year, I think he's back to being that guy, just like one of the biggest outliers in the game. I think Deebo is fully back. But what really gives him the edge is the schematic matchup. Jack Del Rio out of the picture. Ron Rivera comes in. What does he do? Increases the rate of zone and jacks up the rate of too high coverage. Deebo Samuel shredding too high coverage, really the guy in that coverage scheme. 39% first read target share versus Ayuk's 23%. That's a massive difference. Again, both guys could get there, or it could just be Ayuk. But just the simple math to that makes it easier for me to lean Deebo. And I think this is a week where you need at least one 49ers player on every single lineup, non-negotiable. You have to have that. Every single lineup needs at least one 49ers player.
Do you feel as strongly about any of the other, like the Eagles or the Rams? I feel like are both like, man, they should be able to absolutely crush. They've got some star power. Do you not feel as strongly about any other team as San Francisco?
It's no, definitely San Francisco. And like, I'm going to have multiple 49ers on lineups, but bare minimum one. It's the nuts matchup on both sides of the ball, and most potent offense in football. And they're gonna smash.
Just to clear up some confusion, because a lot of people have brought up in chat, my understanding of the Jacoby Brissett versus Sam Howell situation, Jacoby Brissett was named the starting quarterback, then now has a hamstring injury, so Sam Howell might be forced in, even though Jacoby Brissett had been named the starting quarterback. Now Brissett is injured, and is it looking like Howell is going to play, or do you have any read on who?
Yeah, Howell starting per Aaron Wilson.
All right, yeah, and that just came out before the show. Okay. So Howell is the starter now, even though it had been Brissett. Now he hurt his hamstring. Okay. All right. I'll continue talking about. Do you have other wide receivers that you want to? So you like Debo better than Ayuk? I think that was good to flesh that out. But obviously both in play. This is such an elite matchup for both of them. So as you say, just play a San Francisco player everywhere. You probably won't regret it. Any other wide receivers that you love this week?
Yeah, Nico Collins should probably be 20%. I don't know what it'll wind up as. Seems like he started getting steamed yesterday, but just that was the biggest cheat code in DFS, right? It was must play at least one Houston wide receiver on every lineup when CJ Stroud is healthy. And now Tank Dell's not there. Noah Brown is seriously banged up. Collins has been one of the best, most efficient wide receivers in football this year. One of the most productive in home games. He is pretty wild home road splits. And yeah, he's just a sick play. I also really like Chris Olave. I haven't really heard too many people talk about him. He's a little banged up, but just look at what he's done. He's had at least 8 targets in each of his last 8 healthy games, averaging 10.1. He's eclipsed 90 receiving yards in each of his last 4, averaging 23 DraftKings fantasy points per game. And he gets an easy top 3 matchup against the Buccaneers pass funnel that really struggles against wide receiver ones. And struggles in the slot, which is where he gets about like 45% of his targets. So really like Collins, really like Olave, really like Curtis Samuel now that Howell's back. He's only 4,400. And then we can start to flirt with the cheap guys a little bit if you want.
Yeah. Let's go flirt with those cheap guys. Before we do that, I just want to make sure no concerns about Nico Collins' 45% route participation. I assume that was just he's returning from injury last week.
Oh yeah. Like if he has that this week, he's an absolute bust. But he's just a nice boomer bust GPP play. Yeah, I would bet on that increasing. Looking at the injury report, I remember being optimistic on this, but let me just double check that.
And Noah Brown, I did not even realize that Noah Brown is banged up. He was somebody that I was really interested in at 5,100. But it's you just don't think that he's fully healthy, so he's not going to be. You're not expecting much there.
Yeah. So Nico Collins got in full practices Thursday and Friday. That is huge. Noah Brown got in 1 full practice on Friday, but was limited throughout the rest of the week. Yeah, I don't know. I just think he's been seriously banged up for a while.
Okay.
But that could be a wrong read.
All right. We do have several other wide receivers I want to talk about, but let's just take a step back real quickly to Isaiah Pacheco. I just want to, now that we know that Pacheco is playing, and it was a concussion, so not something that I would expect to really limit him in any significant way. Do you think that you will have any interest in Pacheco this week? Switching back to running back just real quick because we have.
I don't know. Again, I need to give that more thought, but
okay.
I don't think so.
All right, I'm just thinking it is kind of the nut matchup.
Yeah,
Cincinnati.
Yeah. No, you're right.
I don't. Think
again, it was really just CMC Kyron. It just has me drooling.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I think that's somebody that we'll have to look at, listen to our shows tomorrow, figure out what the ownership is on Pacheco tomorrow, because really hard to gauge right now because he's not in the tool, so I have no idea what his expected ownership would be, but it will be, nut matchup if he does end up. It sounds like he is going to go, so somebody to consider if he comes in at low ownership. We'll continue talking about wide receivers. Let's start flirting. Let's start flirting with these cheap wide receivers. Who do you like of the cheap guys?
Well, I said I like Darius Slayton, and a Tyrod Slayton stack can allow you to fit a lot of the expensive guys we like. He is the Giants' only every down receiver, 93% snap share since the week 13 bye. Tyrod, I think, is a big upgrade for him, particularly as the team's deep threat. Taylor's accounted for just 23% of the team's dropbacks, but 40% of the deep completions. Slayton hasn't seen a ton of volume with Tyrod, but a 14.7 yards per target average, which is hyper elite. Rams have seen a league high 78 deep targets come against them. And they're the number one matchup for perimeter wide receivers over the last 5 weeks. So kind of everything pointing towards, I guess, just like really good upside for a player who's 3,400. But again, the volume hasn't been there. It's thin. It's just deep threat versus Rams checks out. Perimeter wide receiver versus Rams checks out. You could play Demarcus Robinson too. Puka's a little banged up. Robinson's clearly like a 97% route share guy because the Rams live in three wide receiver personnel. Really good volume in recent weeks, leads the Rams in air yards over the last 3. And it's a good matchup for all receivers there. I like DJ Chark. I know that feels like chasing points. Again, it just doesn't really matter when he's 3% owned, 600 off minimum price, and he just scored 27.8 DraftKings fantasy points last week. Top 5 matchup, and who knows? Like maybe Carolina figured something out. They kind of tweaked Adam Thielen's usage a little bit. They had him playing out wide more, and maybe that's what can help fix the offense. I don't know, but he's fine. He's another good cheap option. Brandon Johnson is another one, especially if Marvin Mims sits. And I'm pretty sure he is going to sit. I'm a big fan of the backup connection. And so he has the backup connection with Stidham.
Nice. I like that. I just remember that I played Darius Slayton in my single entry high stakes lineup that I hand built, and I was like, "Oh, this is my great contrarian play." He ended up being like 35% owned in that contest. That was disappointing. So I don't know. Maybe he won't be as contrarian in higher stakes stuff, but yeah, he's been looking great recently. You mentioned Demarcus Robinson. I like that call.
Oh, Greg Dortch is fine in a nuts matchup.
I was just about to ask about the Arizona guy. So is Dortch your favorite of the Arizona receivers? Any interest in Wilson or Moore?
No. You know how I'm like the Shaheed whisperer, which is like really just like I play him in zone heavy matchups and I avoid him in man heavy matchups. This one is more of a man heavy matchup, by the way, which is why I do like Olave.
Okay.
Wilson is the same thing. Like, I think he still has like 0 yards per route run against man. So it's just a rough spot for him. Dortch has a great schematic matchup. I don't really know how much that matters given the small sample, but it's just, this is a player I've always loved. I've always thought was like really good. Like he went undrafted and I was like, no, this is a guy who should have went early day 3. And so I just like the player, and it's the best possible matchup against the Eagles.
And I know you also famously hate Rondale Moore personally, on a personal level. Right. You hate Rondale Moore, who was another one of my highest owned best ball players who let me down this year. So it's just Dortch for you of the wide receivers for Arizona. So we'll talk about tight ends in a bit as well, but it's Dortch your favorite. All right, that's it's good to know, because I've been on Michael Wilson. Maybe I'll consider going to some Dortch instead. Let me see if I have other. Sounds like so Zay Flowers very, very much questionable. Would you want to play any OBJ, Bateman, anybody else if Flowers ends up missing?
I would upgrade likely a good margin.
Okay,
and that would be it.
We speaking of you being the Rashid whisperer, I don't want I want to put your unblemished record on the line once again. So it sounds like this is not the week 4 Shaheed for you.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, you can still play him for sure, because without Michael Thomas, his route shares come up considerably. His target shares come up considerably. He's a great deep threat. You could say, maybe regardless of scheme. And this is a great matchup for a deep threat. But no, I think it's an Olave game.
Okay. You said that Puka Nacua is banged up, which I did not realize that I know a couple weeks ago he was hurt for a little while. I think a shoulder injury. So I've been saying I want to play some, maybe try the double stack of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. Is it bad enough? And I know you are. It's a way that you and I differ to some extent. Is you just don't want to play injured guys. Like if you have questions about a player's injury status, you like to just say I'm not playing that player. Is that the case with Puka Nacua for you this week?
No, I think he's a good play.
Okay.
This is kind of like last week with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, where like, either one could definitely go off. It's just I feel very convicted in Kyren, and he's not drawing the ownership he should. So I'm just going to play Kyren. But if Kyren was drawing the ownership he would, I would have a lot more Stafford stacks with Puka on it.
Okay. Devontae Adams. 3% ownership.
Yeah, not for me. It's just haven't really seen a ceiling with Aiden O'Connell. He has had some bad matchups, which might have played a role, but it's just not how I would go about it. Again, like very, very into Tyreek and the 49ers receivers and Nico and Olave, and that's kind of where I would go to pay up.
No Jalen Waddle. Do Cedric Wilson or Braxton Berrios become interesting to you?
Yeah, I was thinking about this before the show, because to me, it's just when one of the guys is out, they just target the other one on like 50% of routes. And it should just be the Tyreek Hill show. Like it was the Jalen Waddle show the week without him when he won me 25K, or earlier in the season when Waddle missed, it was the Tyreek show. But like, what if it's not? Tyreek is banged up. And the play would be, actually, I don't know. I was going to say it's Cedric, and I feel good about it.
Do you want me to look at last week?
Look at the week that Waddle missed. Actually, yeah. Can you do last week plus, what was it, week 3?
The week,
yeah,
that
week
Waddle
3
missed.
and last week.
Okay.
I appreciate you.
Easy to do. Take it. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is not very clear cut.
So click on routes. Chase Claypool's out, right?
Is he? Is he ruled out already?
So okay. Yeah, it looks like a massively disgusting, gross committee. So yeah. I guess no one's in play. Yeah.
All right. So we have, as we talk, we got Greg Dortch, got some other cheap options, so don't necessarily need to go there. Figured it was worth bringing up at least. So if you said that you don't have interest in doing Philly stacks. It's a spot that I think that I have more interest in than you, but and I'm going to force you to build one with me. But AJ Brown versus Devontae Smith. Do you have any interest as either of them as a one-off?
It would be Devonta Smith in the nuts coverage shell matchup.
Okay. I love it. Everybody in chat still thinks that it's Carr. They're still debating whether Carr is your quarterback. He wouldn't have said no, he's not my quarterback. If he's not my quarterback. It's not Derek
mystery
quarterback. And then finally, DeAndre Hopkins' revenge game, but also a great spot against the Texans, who have been much worse against receivers. I believe. Let me double check that this is true. Over the past 5, Houston third worst against receivers over the past 5 games. Any interest in DeAndre Hopkins against his former team?
You become such a pro at navigating these tools. I love it, Neil.
Yeah, I have a lot of experience at this point.
Hopkins has not only the nuts on paper matchup, but it's also the nuts schematic matchup. Based on the scheme that Houston tends to run, we should expect like a 15% boost to his fantasy expectation. The issue Houston just gave up 50 freaking fantasy points to Amari Cooper last week. The concerns with this is, Hopkins had this exact same matchup 2 weeks ago, and he had 9 targets and he scored 3 fantasy points. And not only that, but he's had 3 games with 25 or more DK and then 7 games in the single digits. He's really been a DFS bust this year. And so I kind of just think he's a little overrated, and he's drawing ownership. but I get it. I was on him 2 weeks ago and he flopped in this matchup.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe the regression hits this week, but
I believe today is Festivus, Scott. I'm kind of just making that up, but I want to continue airing grievances. So I'm going to say that this is Festivus. I got knocked out. I led the league in points in my main league all year, led the league in points. I needed like 10 points total out of DeAndre Hopkins and Derrick Henry against the Texans in round 1 of the playoffs. They put up like 5 total fantasy points combined, 20 touches for Derrick Henry, and they just did absolutely nothing. So yeah, I hate them. I hate you so much, Titans. I still might play some DeAndre Hopkins, though. I don't know, just because of the matchup. Despite busting 2 weeks ago, I think I have a little bit of interest there. Anything else you want to talk about with wide receivers, or grievances that you want to air?
I don't know. I think I'm good. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I mean, Godwin, insane target share the last 3 weeks. Mike Evans just been, like an absolute print fest this year. I probably won't get there, but I can't fault anyone for playing either of those guys.
Okay. All right, let's move on to look at some tight ends.
Those guys make sense for mini stacks, I guess.
The Tampa guys.
Or a Baker double, yeah.
Highest owned: Travis Kelce, Trey McBride, Gerald Everett. What's your level of interest in these 3 high-owned tight ends?
Man, I have no interest in a 7K Travis Kelce. Like, again, we were talking about Christian McCaffrey, Kyron Williams, Tyreek Hill as like the expensive pay, and like Kelce cannot come close to sniffing those guys and their slate breaking potential, or their, just flat out median projection. He's overpriced by a wide margin, in my opinion, and he's chalky. That just doesn't really make too much sense to me. I think he's 3 games away from retirement. I think, the injuries have taken its toll. I don't think he has like the high end wide receiver 1 upside he used to offer, which made him such a cheat code. So I'm not really about that, but he makes sense for a Mahomes stack. Trey McBride, not really much to say here. He's fucking awesome. I love him. If you look at like his target share, his targets per route run, his XFP per game, and you contrast it versus wide receivers, like he's one of the better values of the slate. So he's a great play. Gerald Everett, I also think, is a really good play. That's been Easton Stick's favorite receiver by a wide margin. I think he has more than twice as many targets as anyone else with Stick. He also had a season high route share. He was just a part-time player, but Donald Parham was a healthy scratch. So that jumped to 74%. Keenan Allen, Josh Palmer, both I think are going to sit out this week. So he's your cash tight end of the week. Strong for tournaments. There's a few more I'll probably have more exposure to. Chigo Okonkwo, I'll just say, is probably a little overrated. He's had this big usage spike, but that's because Josh Wiley and Trevon Wesco were out, and those guys are now back. So he's probably a little overrated. Isaiah Likely is a really good play. What made the Mark Andrews Lamar Jackson stack so potent is you wanted to play zone coverage against him, so the cornerbacks wouldn't have their backs turned to kind of keep him contained as a runner. And Mark Andrews, like why that works so well is Mark Andrews is just like an elite zone beater. But Likely's done really well in that role, and so it's a super zone heavy matchup. I like him this week. I think he's a really good value. Schultz makes sense. Again, just the CJ Stroud cheat code we've been talking about. No Tank Dell, Noah Brown, I think personally is banged up, so he would make sense as the clear number 2. Price has come down from when we were chasing him a couple of weeks back. George Kittle, I think, is an awesome play. So again, I'm San Francisco obsessed this week, and the argument for him is he's what, like 2K cheaper than Debo, 1,500 right, cheaper than Ayuk. And you could argue he has like comparable upside to both. he leads all tight ends in games with 22.5 DK fantasy points or more by a wide margin. He also has 2 more than either Debo or Ayuk. He's averaging nearly 3 yards per route run since week 10. I'm going to have a lot of Purdy doubles this week. And it just it could be Ayuk and Debo in the nuts matchup, but Kittle fits easier. He's cheaper. We went back and forth on our show whether or not Washington is actually good against tight ends. It's kind of unclear to me. At the bare minimum, they're extremely vulnerable to wide receivers, and maybe so much so that Kittle's going to be the clear 3. But still, just that price point, the upside, I think he's a great value and a really good play.
Yeah, it looks like in the last 5 weeks, just based on schedule adjusted, they've been better against tight ends than you'd expect, but they've just been so bad overall. It could just be a usage thing for tight ends over those 5 games.
Yeah, Johnny looked into it on the show. I think like Jake Ferguson left one game early with an injury, and then there was like another thing that was weird. Waller kind of smashed them when he was still banged up.
Okay, like it seems like it should be as good of a matchup as any other position for the Niners.
I forget who their guy is who covers tight end. I kind of needed to dig into that just a little bit more, but
okay.
But yeah, regardless of the matchup, it's a nut spot for Purdy. He's going to have all day to throw and just.
Does your Eagles hate extend to Dallas Goedert?
No, I don't really have a read there. It's
all right.
He's fine.
Okay, fair. Any other tight ends you want to talk about, or should we maybe look at defenses briefly and build some lineups?
Yeah, I think Evan Ingram might be the best tight end play of the slate.
Oh,
yeah.
So you like the CJ Beathard Evan Ingram connection?
Yeah. When Lamar Jackson went down, Johnny and I just went all in on Mark Andrews every week, and that made us so much money. Some quarterbacks just lock on to the tight end, and that really looks like CJ Beathard. He's targeted Ingram on 41% of his throws. That is insane.
That is a lot.
I mean, Calvin Ridley's second with a 17% target share. No Christian Kirk. Zay Jones, very banged up. Look at what Ingram's done since Kirk went down. It's like high-end wide receiver 1 volume. I don't know why we shouldn't be viewing him exactly as we would if David Njoku was on the slate, and Njoku just kind of went off on Thursday night. So, I really like Ingram.
I don't remember exactly when Kirk went down, but
week 13.
Okay, so we have one game here with Kirk. Yeah, but just barely.
Oh.
Yeah, Ingram, 84% route participation, 42 targets in that span. Yeah, he's been elite. And that's
over 10 targets per game. Production's there.
And you
easily the most productive player. 75 yards per game. Sorry.
Just saying, for most of the year, you were not on Ingram, and then you've seen that he's recently the things have changed for Ingram. Suddenly he is getting the usage that you want to see from a tight end.
Yeah, he has 5 end zone targets over the last 4 weeks, and across the first 12 weeks of the season, he had 2. Right. It was something like that, and so same thing for red zone targets as well. He's eclipsed 80 receiving yards in 3 of his last 4 games, has 3 touchdowns over that span. So I think he's an awesome play. He's a guy I'm considering, putting in the flex in some spots.
All right. Any other tight ends you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm Lucas Krull. I have a good feeling about him. That's all I'll say. If you need a punt, I would play him over Austin Hooper.
Interesting. All right. So Lucas Krull last week, 41. Oh, no, this is the last 4 weeks. Yeah, he's a guy that I've loved for a showdown, and I know he scored a touchdown last week. I have not really thought about him on the main slate But yeah, 30% route participation.
2,800.
5 targets on just 30% route. So if you bump up that route participation a little bit, suddenly the target share is going to look really interesting for crawl. Yeah, that's interesting.
Runs a 4.5, 240, 255 pounds. I mean, it's
also
thin,
a backup. Is this also a backup connection thing?
Another backup connection. That's right. Yeah.
All right. Interesting. All right. Do you want to look at defenses at all?
I don't. I need to do more research on defense.
The one thing that I will say, I love that Sam Howell is playing for the Niners defense because Sam Howell takes sacks. Takes a lot of sacks. So I like that. That's one defense that's going to stand out. Probably the field's going to be there too, though. All right. You want to build some lineups?
We got a, what's it called where they pay to talk to you? Super chat.
Oh, we got a super chat. Oh, yeah. Thank you, James. James says, higher Freiermuth or Otto? Who's higher? Higbee? Probably Higbee. Let me look on FanDuel to see if Higbee is also 5K. Guessing that's just auto correct. Higbee. Yep. Okay. Higbee, Freiermuth, or Cade Otton. Auto. Yeah. Higbee, Freiermuth, or Cade Otton. Do you have a preference there?
Yeah, those are 3 guys I didn't even spend any time on, so I don't really know.
All right, let me think.
Which I guess Higbee, right? Which team has the highest implied point total? Just chasing touchdowns on FanDuel, right? I think it could be that easy.
Well, let me since we got a super chat, I'm going to pull it up in the boom bust just to tell you what the boom bust tells us of those 3 tight ends. And Scott, we haven't done a single plug the entire show, so it feels like a good time to say you can find the links for all of our stuff in the description of this video. I'm looking right now. This is the stochastic boom bust tool. I've been flipping back and forth between stochastics tools and fantasy points tools, and you can find the links for all of them. So this one is stochastic. The top stack stochastic. A lot of these. This is the fantasy points data suite. All of these tabs. I guess these are a lot of repeating, but you can sort of differently. And then this is also fantasy points. So you can find the links for all of this stuff in the description of this video. The boom bust comes along with our NFL data packages. All right, so looking at FanDuel tight ends, I'm going to sort by salary. So we have Freiermuth, Higbee, Cade Otton. Looks like our best odds here. Pat Freiermuth has a 3.8% chance of being optimal. He's also 4.7% owned. So if the rest of your lineup is, if you have like some contrarian pieces, maybe you just go to the best bet in Pat Freiermuth. If your lineup is pretty chalky, I think I would prefer Tyler Higbee as the slight positive leverage there. Of course, these numbers are all so close together that like slight positive leverage, if the ownership comes in slightly different than we're expecting, it's kind of hard to know exactly. But currently we have a little bit of positive leverage on Tyler Higbee. He's also nice leverage on a lot of other Rams players who are I guess they're not getting that much ownership, but it's a great spot for Higbee. I think my preference overall, I'd probably go Higbee over Freiermuth over Otton based on the boom bust tool. It's going to be how I would answer that question. All right, let's make some lineups, Scott. Are we ready to make some lineups?
Let's do it.
All right. Fantasy Football Millionaire. Wait, I want to do the Sunday slate. Is this the right one? Yeah. Okay, we don't have a Saturday slate. Right. All right, drafting. All right, there are 2 lineups for sure that I want to make. As I said, I want to force you to make a Philadelphia stack with me just so that you have some exposure to it because I like it. I also want to try doing the you want to play all 3 studs in a lineup with Tyreek Hill, Chris McCaffrey, and Kyren Williams. I want to try doing that also for one of our lineups. Do you have a preference for where we start, Scott? And then, of course, we can make another one, whatever you want to do.
No, I'll just say for this, when we're doing this, I really want you to take the reins. I think you're the better lineup builder and like DFS player. I gave you a list of like a bunch of plays I like, and you use your DFS brain to kind of fit together a lineup that gets as many of those names as possible and is well correlated.
All right, let me see what I can do. I'm gonna start with this Hurts stack.
Mm-hmm. And the only problem Smith would be my preference over AJ Brown.
Okay. Yep. That was that's the hard part for me is that part of it. And then we can either do Goddard or we can do the run back with McBride. I'm going to start with McBride and think about. I'm going to do Dort for sure because I know that you love Dort and I love that correlation there. Let's throw him in here. The Dorter chamber, as some call him. And then the tight end. Do I want to go McBride and Goddard? They're both fairly inexpensive. Let's start with just McBride for now, and then I'll think about adding Goddard later. Now we need some salary savings. We'll go to defenses.
Can we just show off one of our tools for a second? Because like you said, we didn't really plug anything. Can you go to our new wide receiver coverage tool in Fantasy Points Data?
Bigger. Yep.
And so again, I mean, AJ Brown could go nuclear just because Arizona's secondary is trash. It's just like, I mean, Smith has been outperforming him since late October, but yeah, go to the search option and just click Eagles. What makes it easier for me is just like, look at AJ Brown -10 versus Devonta +5%. AJ Brown's really kind of just been very jaggy, just a guyish against too high coverage. And so I would feel better about Devonta Smith in the matchup. But I mean, with both guys, like we haven't really seen a true tournament winning score from either one in a while. But it was AJ Brown kind of, or at least with a healthy Goddard.
So if anybody wants to use this one, this is one we talked about how good I've gotten at navigating some of the tools. This is one that I've tried a couple times. I'm like, I don't really know exactly what I'm looking at here. Is coverage grade just like your number one metric for like, this is a good matchup? Obviously expected fantasy points per route run. That's already going to factor in like a player's usage, which we have, we look at elsewhere. But is coverage grade just like your go-to for like, this is a good matchup versus a bad matchup, or is it a combination of things?
Yeah, so I would stick with the schedule adjusted. That's more important. That's more predictive. But this is something that really helps in DFS, especially to break ties or to navigate game stacks. And even within that, it matters a lot for some players like the Rashid Shaheeds, Michael Wilsons of the world. But for some teams, it doesn't really matter that much at all. But this is one instance where it does matter. It's just who benefits from the scheme that this defense typically runs. And in this instance, against an Arizona defense that runs heavy, too high coverage, Smith benefits, whereas AJ Brown, you can question whether there's going to be a ceiling performance because he has struggled or just not really seen a lot of volume against too high looks this year.
Okay. I like that. We got a super chat too, Scott. And this is not a super chat that you are going to like. So Mike Davis, he sent us some money and then followed it up, Scott, with, is it Browning, your sneak quarterback? You were asked directly in a super chat, Scott. So
I know. It is not Browning.
It is not Browning.
Subscribe to fantasypoints.com, get in our Discord, and I will tell you who it is and why.
I love that approach though, Mike, for the record, just asking, I'm going to send you money. So you're forced to answer. I love it. That was great. But yeah, sign up for Fantasy Points. Scott doesn't want to say it because other people gave him the idea. So he doesn't want to give.
Well, it's that. It's also sources. It's also right now, everyone in our Discord is building the exact same lineup.
Okay.
And so I don't want it to be too steamed.
All right. Back to building our lineup. So we got Devonta Smith in there. Good, showing the reason for Devonta Smith there. We've got the full game stack here. I'll think about adding Dallas Goedert later. For now, I'm going to think about which defense I want to throw in here. I could throw the Patriots versus Josh Allen. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right, let's do it. 2,300. That makes some sense. 5,500 left per player. Do we want to go cheap at run? I mean, we have, I know that you love a couple of these more expensive running backs. So let me see if I can find a cheap wide receiver to throw in here. Noah Brown, a little bit banged up.
Oh, someone just asked if the coverage shell tool is helping to produce winners for me. Yeah, that was a big reason why I was all over Jalen Waddle against the Jets. George Pickens had like the best matchup last week and he went absolutely nuclear. There's no holy grail stat, but this is something that I found to be very valuable for DFS, where you're trying to find outlier performances at low ownership. Like this, it also works for props. Like it's not baked into the prop market when matchups are. And, it's certainly not impacting DFS salaries or ownership. So, again, it's not a holy grail stat. There's like definitely some noise to it, but I find value with it. But you can just read my articles because I do all the heavy lifting for you. So Hurts, Zamir, CMC,
got Zamir in there.
Devonta Smith, Dortch, Slayton. There's a lot of it. See, this is why I don't like paying up for Hurts. Is like there's a lot of these stars and scrubs lineups, and I'd feel so much better if it was a stars and scrubs with more of the big three than a quarterback, and just kind of hope my cheap quarterback three.
I know that you hate Alec Pierce and sometimes make fun of me for even suggesting him. However, he fits in really nicely here. He would be a nice run back to Zamir White. Nice little mini stat correlation there in this lineup.
All I'll ask is that you have to pick from players that I mentioned specifically by name.
Oh, okay. All right. So I have 3,900. So I put in CMC. I forced him in here because of your rule that we need to have at least one Niner in every lineup. I could switch out CMC and put Kittle into the flex, or get rid of Darius Slayton. I guess I could.
Well, I also mentioned DJ Chark. I mentioned Brandon Powell.
That's true. All right. Let me see.
Was there a 3,900 tight end? I don't think so. But yeah, what happens if you drop to Kyren? Who does that get you? Because he's one of the big three.
True. Now we have 5,200 left. I want to say Kittle's 56. So this lineup does not currently have a Niner in it.
It breaks the rule.
That breaks the rule.
All right. So then trade McBride with Kittle. Oh, no, that wouldn't make sense, would it? No, keep McBride in there.
I mean, McBride. What about no? I could put Kittle and I could put Goddard in there, so we'd still have the correlation. We've already got Dortch as a bring back.
Interesting.
What if we do that? Let's see, Kittle, and now we have. Oh, we have plenty of. So we have even more if we don't want to throw, but we could put Goddard in there. Now we have 700 left over. Doesn't quite get us up to CMC with Kyren. Let's see.
Is there a Slayton upgrade? Or you know what it would be? It would be stack Zamir with Raiders defense.
Raiders defense. Oh yeah. And then
Slayton fits perfect, right?
Yeah, I think so.
There you go. That was a well-built lineup.
That is a well-built lineup. We got the double stack. We got Hurts with Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. We have Greg Dortch as the bring back on that one. We've got your guy Kyren. We've got Zamir White in there. We got our Niner in Kittle, and we've got the Raiders defense paired with. This is a really well-built lineup, to be honest. Like in terms of all the correlations, got the full-on game stack. Yeah,
well done. Yeah,
well done.
This is what I wanted from you, and you nailed it.
I mean, you did the final puzzle. You found the final pieces of the puzzle there. All right. So now I want to build this one starting with your core three of Tyreek Hill and then both of the stud running backs. So now we have 3,800 left per player. So we're going to have to go cheap at defense. Here, do you think we go to the Patriots defense?
Yeah. I like Patriots D. They've been resurgent somewhat. And Josh Allen, very turnover prone. Quarterback would be, I guess, Tyrod Slayton.
That would make sense. All right, where is?
But we could also do Bryce Young plus Shark. We could also do, I don't know, Beathard, Engram. We could do my mystery quarterback, except we can't.
Can't mention the mystery quarterback. All right. Let's start with. I didn't realize Tyrod's only 4,600. That's why he's getting so much ownership.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we'll go Slayton. Oops. So now we're up to 4,166 remaining per player. Probably fit a cheap tight end in there. All right, you like Gerald Everett quite a bit, it sounded like.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, we could go to your guy Lucas Kroll, 2,800.
We could do that. Let's go Everett for now. Let's put Zamir White in the flex.
That leaves us 3,900 at wide receiver.
Chark, I guess. You want to, unless you want to take out Zamir and see if there's something else we can do.
Well, I mean, we could throw in another relatively inexpensive tight end in the flex, maybe. I mean,
can we do Ingram?
Evan Ingram.
Yeah, is he affordable?
What is his price tag? 57. No. Okay, he's more expensive than Zamir.
Yeah, I'd rather play Zamir.
Yeah. We could upgrade the Patriots potentially.
Bengals? Yeah, they've been so bad.
Against Kansas City, though? Yeah.
I mean, does Kansas City fear you?
That's a good point. They just gave up 2 defensive touchdowns last week, so they shouldn't. But I still think the Patriots feel better. Do you think, would you rather play the Bengals than the Patriots defense?
I don't really know.
To me, it's like the Patriots defense is better, and also I think a better matchup for a defense. I think Josh Allen a little bit more turnover prone in general than Mahomes.
Yeah, but Lou Amarino kind of has owned Mahomes historically. No.
Okay.
Or held him in check at least.
That is not a trend that I'm aware of, but
yeah, let me check.
We could do it.
No, it's not really true. I mean, he hasn't been bad, but he has held him in check. 2 of 3 games under 260 passing yards. I don't know. I just remember that playoff game where like it was the worst half of Mahomes' career in the second half.
We are getting a lot of people, Scott, asking where to join your Discord. Somebody put the link to Stochastic Discord, which you should also join, by the way. But the data that we're talking about, the quarterback play, the secret quarterback play, will be in the Fantasy Points Discord. So
yeah, can you go back to schedule adjusted, and I'll show you where to click. Yeah, so scroll up, go to media, top right, and then Discord chat right there. Yeah, I think you need to be a subscriber first, though. So also, and then click plans all the way at the top right. That's where you go to subscribe.
Okay. Yep. So there you go. Plans up here to get to subscribe, and then once you're subscribed, you can go to media, sign up for the Discord.
This isn't like the best play in the world. Again, like Purdy's going to be my highest owned quarterback, but this is just one I don't feel I can give away on this show.
It's fun. I feel like you're putting a lot of pressure, like or like people are now like really want to know this secret quarterback, and it's like not even like your top 5 quarterback for you. It sounds like
no, it's gonna be number 2 for sure.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So how are we? I feel like we're almost there with this lineup, but I feel like we could maybe, I don't know.
Let me
Patriots defense. I mean, we can leave 300 on the table. That's not the end of the world. Do we have a tight end that we like better for 3,800?
No, I feel good about Everett.
Okay. We could downgrade Everett to Kroll, but I mean, yeah, Everett looks good.
Yeah, we could do Chark to Brandon Powell, but I kind of like Chark.
Yeah, I mean, we could just leave it like this. There's no reason we need to upgrade when we're 300 away. Does this work for you?
All right. Yeah.
We do have, we have the bring back. So we've got Tyrod Taylor here with Darius Slayton. We have Kyron Williams is the bring back on that one. We have your Niners player in Christian McCaffrey in this one, along with Tyreek Hill. So we have all 3 of the studs. We've got DJ Chark against Jacksonville, Gerald Everett against Denver, Zamir White against the Colts, and then the Patriots defense going up against Josh Allen. I think it's strong. I think it is a strong lineup. I don't mind leaving 300 on the table, even though it feels like an incomplete puzzle. There's nothing wrong with leaving some salary on the table. All right, let's do another lineup, Scott. And this one, why don't you build out like the core to it? Why don't you tell me where you want to start with this lineup, and then we can build from there.
Brock Purdy, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, We could do Ayuk instead of Kittle, but
let's start here and see if we want to change later. Does that make sense?
Let's put Ayuk in there too, and then
we want to do a full on Ayuk with Kittle also.
Yeah, but I don't think we're going to stick with it.
I see. We're going to start here and then we'll adjust based on how much salary is left over. Take somebody out later. All right, defense.
Curtis Samuel.
Oh, you want to put Curtis Samuel? Okay.
For the bring back.
Yep.
Sam Howell is addicted to slots.
Got it.
Zamir White.
$4,400 left per player. Should we fill in a defense and then we can see what we have left?
Patriots. Zach Charbonnet.
So are you? Would you take Charbonnet out if we get Kenneth Walker in?
Yeah, for sure. I'll take that out.
Okay. Just
and then I don't know, Zeke for the stack.
So we have 300 left over once again.
All right. So full on nuclear game stack. This is like a good core, right? But let's say this is a little it's a little too much. Let's take out one 49ers player and we got the news that Walker's gonna play. So we got to take out Charbonnet too.
All right,
so take out him, take out Ayuk.
Got it.
And let's take out Zeke, who I don't know is a must.
Okay, so we're sticking with the core game stack of Purdy with Samuel and Kittle with other Samuel as the bring back.
Let's try Kyron.
All right. Throwing Kyron in there. Still have 4,800 left per player with one wide receiver and one flex. We've done a lot of Dortch, or maybe we just did the one Dortch lineup. We could go back there as a cheap option. Demarcus Robinson, Brandon Powell. Or was it Brandon Johnson is who you like?
Yeah, what about Slayton? Or did you just say we have too much of him? I just want to see what he gets you.
He gets you Zeke again, I think.
Right. So you can do that. What about Likely in the flex? What does that do? How much is he? Can you click on tight end and scroll down?
Yeah. You just want to see the cheapest?
No, I just wanted to see where Engram was versus Likely and where.
Oh yeah, Engram is expensive. Engram's up at 5,700.
Yeah. I still kind of like him as the wide receiver one from that game, though. All right, click out of Slayton.
Out of Likely or no?
Yeah, I think I like the Slayton Z combo the best.
Okay,
but you take over.
All right. Well, so is that the exact combo that worked? I feel like there was something that we almost landed on a lineup that could have fit Trey McBride, and I'm forgetting where it was exactly.
All right,
it was before we put Kyron in there. We had never mind. Okay. Well, let me see what happens if I put Trey McBride into the flex. I might be wrong about this. Oh yeah, then we had 3,700. I don't know, might have been a couple iterations ago, so maybe we've adjusted too much.
Well, this one fits Chark perfect.
True. How do you feel about that? So we got the game stack with Purdy, Debo, Kittle, and Curtis Samuel as the run back. Got Zamir White, Kyron Williams, DJ Chark, Trey McBride in the flex and Patriots defense.
Yeah, I like it.
Does that work?
Yeah, right. These are a lot of the teams I seem to be building.
I mean, it looks like a strong lineup to me. Man, DJ Chark getting it done at the worst possible time.
How did Papa Gates play him on 10% of his Millie lineups last week?
Did he really? I missed that.
The guy was averaging 1.7 fantasy points per game over the last 10 weeks. Crazy.
Malachar, sadly, we do not do FanDuel on the show. Sorry, I'm not prepared to build a FanDuel lineup. Haven't really looked at the pricing. I mean, obviously, a lot of what we talk about on the show is also relevant to FanDuel because we're largely just talking about like the trends and stuff within teams. But I have not even looked at the FanDuel slate, so I don't think we are prepared to do that. And Scott, as a former FanDuel employee, is disgruntled and hates them.
No, they did fire me and John Proctor though back in the day, technically.
Many years ago, right?
Yeah. We wrote for Number Fire, and then they bought Number Fire, and then we tweeted out something critical of FanDuel and got fired.
That's funny. That's great. All right. Do you want to do one more? Should we close up the show? Do you have any other like lineups that you feel like you want to build on the stream, or have we done the core lineups that we had interest in?
I'm good. If you want to squeeze in another one, we can though.
Let's squeeze in one more just because it's fun.
I like it.
We don't have that many shows left this year, unfortunately.
I know.
This being week 17. So let's do one more. Let's take down the Millie this week. How about?
Okay.
So
let's do a balanced build with two of the big three.
Two of the big three. All right. So my favorite of the three are the two running backs personally, but
okay. Let's do that. You could say Tyreek's not fully healthy. You know, not an amazing matchup.
I think that's I tend to just overweight matchup, and to me it's just like Baltimore is so scary that I don't like it. But then it's like Tyreek Hill is going to end up getting 15 catches and probably house one. So, all right, we'll start with the running backs though, and then we will build from there. I was thinking that there's a number of wide receivers who are kind of interesting on the slate. Now let's see which are the wide receivers that you are on. So you don't love Noah Brown. We're probably not going to be able to do that. I was thinking about doing a CJ Stroud stack, but I don't know if that's going to work with both of these.
Right.
So we're going to have to go a little bit more balanced at wide receiver. Let's build out the wide receivers and then see which quarterback, or if a quarterback really makes sense with our receivers. You said balance, and I was just about to say, well, why don't we do a Bryce Young stack? That's not really the balance type of stack. Let's see.
Debo, Nico, Olave.
We're not going to have the salary. We only have 45-85 left.
No, I'm not saying all three of those guys, but those I'd want at least one.
Debo, Nico, Olave.
Rashee Rice up there, Pittman up there.
All right, let's start with, who's the cheapest? Debo, Nico. Olave is only 6,800. Maybe after you talked about how Derek Carr is not your guy, maybe we'll have to end up playing him because we won't have the salary for anybody else.
You're right. Is there a bring back there that makes sense for you? I think all those guys are kind of expensive
for Tampa. Yeah, I mean, I'd love to play Mike Evans, but he's 7,800. What is Godwin?
Right.
Godwin down at 6,100. We also, I would love to put Rachaad White in there, but he's also pretty expensive. Probably not going to work. So we could try doing Godwin. I don't know that I love it.
Let's do Zamir. And let's do Patriots defense and Everett to kind of figure this out.
Yep, that makes sense.
How much is Schultz again? 4,200?
40. I want to say 47, but let's see. No, 43. Interesting. We could do, if you didn't have concerns about Noah Brown being banged up, we could try doing Schultz and Noah Brown, but with Stroud.
I mean, that's interesting.
I don't know that we're actually gonna have the salary for it. Let's see if we did. If we come close. Yeah, 32.50 left per player. It's not gonna work. Could take Olave out of there and go to another cheap receiver. What do you think of that? If we try replace Olave with Noah Brown, and then we would have 4,100 left per receiver. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I don't really love it.
Okay. All right, let's undo Stroud, Brown, and see what we can do from there. All right, so we had Olave in there. So we're going to need a cheap... I mean, we could go back to another Tyrod stack. Tyrod to Slayton.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we just killed this lineup. This one's tough.
You don't like this lineup. You don't like the way it's coming together.
Well, let's see. Let's drop back down from Schultz. You want to go Kroll?
Oh, Kroll. That's interesting. Yeah, let's give it a shot. I like the name too. It's just a good, strong, like guy you want to cheer for. Kroll sounds like a villain.
Yeah, you're right.
All right, so let's cheap wide receivers. Who do we want to throw? I mean, do what we could go to with Stidham with Kroll.
We could do Levis
and put Hopkins in there.
Yeah, can we fit that?
Probably, yeah. Now we have 3,900 left over. We could switch Zamir White to Schultz if we wanted to as a run back. Don't have to.
Yeah, can you click on Collins and maybe we'll just take out one of the big two running backs.
Okay. Where are you? There we are. All right, so now we're 3,300 over. If we took out McCaffrey, we would not have any running backs here. We would not have any Niners in the lineup.
All right, take out Kyron.
I'm going to move Zamir White up to the running back slot.
Yeah. Take out Kroll. Take out Kroll. Schultz.
Good call. Now,
could also go Okonkwo.
Well, we have 35. Okonkwo is he 3,500?
Oh, no. Everett.
Oh, Gerald Everett is 30. That's a good point.
Or Dortch.
We've got some good options at 3,500. Yeah, we got some really good cheap options here.
Hyatt.
So who do you like? We got Slayton. I feel like we've done Slayton a couple times already.
Yeah.
And we've done Everett a couple times. Could go Dortch. You don't really like Michael Wilson. Let's see.
Yeah, I like Dortch. I like that.
Treylon Burks double stack.
I don't know. I'm like the world's biggest Treylon Burks hater.
I know that about you. That's true. All right.
No.
Should we just go Dortch?
Yeah.
All right. Where's? Oh yeah. Chig is 3,600. Where are you, Dortch? I'm missing. Oh, he's 4,200.
Oh, damn!
I didn't have.
Duh.
All right. So we had Shark.
Fight.
Yeah, that was. So we had Shark in that range. We also had Slayton.
Well, Shark
in that
is
range.
36.
Oh, really? So it's Slayton at 30. So there are fewer. Slayton, Gerald.
We could drop down from Patriots.
We have one option down below.
Bingo.
That being the Commanders against San Francisco. I mean, Brock Purdy just threw 4 interceptions last game.
Right.
We could do that. Do you want to do that? And then we still only have 3,800.
Let's just go break the Slayton and hope he does it.
All right. Break the Slayton for us. I like it. Boom. All right. I like it. That looks like a strong lineup. Just a single stack. Will Levis to DeAndre Hopkins. Then we've got Nico Collins and Dalton Schultz from Houston. We've got McCaffrey, Zamir White, Chris Olave, Darius Slayton, and Patriots defense rounding out the lineup. Looks good. All right, that is going to do it. That is our final lineup for the show. Apologies to Malakar and the FanDuel lovers out there. Couldn't do it. Scott, how you feeling? How you feeling now after 2 hours on the show?
I'm feeling good. My headache's gone, but now I have to pee really bad. So,
all right. Well, then we are going to wrap it up so Scott can go pee. I got my NBA Live Before Lock coming up. By the way, I think EMAC really wants to briefly touch on the Saturday Night Football slate too. So if you want some coverage of that, EMAC and I will be talking about that as well. Thank you all very much for watching. Go find the links in the description of this video to whichever tools you want to check out, both Stochastic and Fantasy Points. Good luck this weekend.